Good afternoon. Welcome to the second Slip Stitch Live. I was originally billing this as a Mending Monday stream, but I don't want to mend anything today. So, we're just going to have some tea and some knitting and have a nice cozy time. So whether you are watching live or in catch up, you can enjoy a little bit of coziness. I would say 30 seconds before I was about to press the live button, the sun dipped over a building in such a way as to become blinding. So I've had to close a blind lest I become. Hello to the chat. This is your friend. Hello. Welcome. So today we have, and this isn't just like a second stream with no upgrades. There should be some background music, which I have tested, but I don't have headphones and I can't like turn this on. So you should be able to hear some very gentle Stardew Valley music in the background because we've got quite close to having to put the hide my Switch in the pantry because of my Stardew Valley screen time. I wanted to know how many hours a day I was spending on it, and then I realised I didn't have the parental controls app on my Switch because I'm not a parent, and I thought it's probably for the best I don't have that information. Hello! Background music, all lovely, thank you very much. You think Rosie's just playing the Stardew Valley music? No. I have curated my favourite tracks from Stardew Valley, and the ones that I felt were the most cozy crafting stream appropriate, because I thought we probably didn't want like the music from the volcano when you're fighting, or the 4 different variants of the band from one of the cutscenes, right? So we've gone for my favourites. I think the track is like 3 hours long. We won't be streaming that long, but it should be, it should be getting some gentle sounds so that I'm allowed to take a breath. And there should be sound. So let's check in. We have some pocket mending happening. And Faith says that Pocopia is her new Stardew Valley. I'm quite glad I don't own a Switch 2 at this point, on the basis that, I think I would struggle not to play Pocopia for 8 to 10 hours a day. I'm just worried the audio might be a little high, so I'm just going to adjust some control knobs. So let's fire up Big Rosie Small Hands, as I've asked you not to call me. Actually, no, let's go Big Hand Small Rosie. Which, I don't know, last time was making it seem like I was left-handed. I don't know whether this is going to do the same. So I actually, for the first time, have, for the first time, for all the times I've streamed, I have the stream running. I don't really want to watch it because it's very distracting. But yeah, I think it's right. Yes, okay, I'm now just watching it to check that my hand was doing the right thing, because I think last time's the video, it was flipped. Anyway, is what I'm trying to say. So, Spiritfarer has lovely streaming friendly original soundtrack music. That is very good to know, because, I was playing around with trying to find some music to play today, because obviously I can't just fire up like a Belle and Sebastian album. I think that they quite rightly would consider that a weird use of their copyright. But yeah, and video game music is terrific, and Spiritfarer is of course one of those games where I'm like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to play that, but instead I'm thinking, it does tell you how many hours you've put in each save on Stardew Valley. And the save I started a couple of weeks ago I've been meaning to check a chat to find out when I said, oh, I'm starting Stardew Valley again, has 110 hours. And more than my original save from when I started playing about 3 years ago. So what am I knitting? Let's actually talk about that, because as you know, I could just talk about Stardew Valley all the time. Big hand, small rosy. We have a new legally distinct scarf on the go. I have been making some scarves to sell, and I have been obviously inspired by the trend for tiny scarves, and these are, I jokingly but not fully jokingly describe them as legally distinct because I have put my own, well, I wouldn't even say I've put my own twist on them, I've sort of redesigned them in some way. So these are, they're not triangles, they are ribbons. I have thinner ones which are more ribbony, but this is more like a neck one. They are symmetrical rather than so they're like an isosceles, not a equilateral triangle. Do I mean equilateral? They're an isosceles from this point rather than a center point in the middle. Really fighting not to use the word scalene. They are half and half, which is why I call them the half and scarf, and they have seamless tips. So they have a seamless I-cord cast on, and then they're grafted ends. So I finished one of those are. Toby in the chat says, the numbers on my save files are none of my business, thank you. Yeah, it is slightly cruel that they put them in when you're loading it. It's almost as though to say, oh, a book has just come through at the library. Hold on, Libby. It's the problem with having the chat open on my iPad. So I'm also getting notifications. Yeah, when you load your save on Stardew Valley, it tells you how many hours you've put into that save, which one could argue is meant to be, you know, a screen time warning, but it's more just to shame you. Yeah, so I finished this one off just now. I had about that much to do. And I've started another one. The only problem is it requires counting to 8 because that's when the increases are. And I don't think I can stream and count rows in my head. So I'm not sure I'm going to work on that, but that's nice. They whip up really quickly. I am using... Oh, now I'm working on knitting needles that make it seem like I'm not well, which is true, but that's not to do with the needles, because I am knitting flat, but on 10 centimeter DPNs, which is weird and foolish, but because obviously they look like they could slip off the end. They don't need to be on DPNs. You do need them at the start for the I-cord beginning, but they're so small, and especially at the beginning when you are changing rows so frequently, it's actually quite nice just to have teeny needles. I did do some... Oh, this is the bag I was going to get out in my last stream, but it was actually in a box, handily, because I've ended up keeping my project bags not just on the little table next to my sofa, which is where they're meant to live, but on my sofa as well, because they have to be accessible at all time. I do, yeah, that's my Peter Pan. Should we flip back so you can see them here? Let's get some big crazy. Yeah, so this is my Peter Pan project bag, and yeah, the as I said, this is a designer who did them for Riley Blake, and she did various different classic books, all in this kind of style, and yeah, there was the mermaid one, so I found that, which was nice because you don't really like to lose your projects or the bags in which they are in. I'm sorry for making you do geometry by referring to different types of triangles. Yeah, I have knitted these scarves on my tiny fixed circulars, which is also... it kind of works, but weirdly the daft DPNs. I mean, I could put stoppers on them, but they're so small that they just tuck into my palm. They don't even stick out, or stick, you know, they just fit really nicely. But yeah, I'm not going to do that because it would involve counting to 8, and I don't have the capacity to multitask that much. I'm going to do these 2 colours. I did a bunch and sold them already and can't remember off the top of my head what colours they were. I do have photographs on them, but 2 purples, or like a purple and a pink. I have a whole bag of felted tweed bits and bobs from I did a cardigan. I did a cardigan in felted tweed, which you may have seen if you saw me in real life, but also when I was on Mastermind. I wore it on Mastermind. And it's a granny hexagon cardigan that I did in felted tweed. And the reason I wore it was, number 1, it's very lovely. Number 2, I thought if I crash and burn at the question portion of Mastermind, people will think, that girl makes a lovely cardigan. Doesn't know anything about the music of Rufus Wainwright, but lovely cardigan. Unfortunately, it used about 1.1 balls of each colour, so I have balls all over the place. I do also now accept like weird half balls of felted tweed. Although my mission is to wind down the amount of yarn I have, that's mainly to stop me buying it. But if you would benefit from having 20 grams of felted tweed leave your house, let me know. So the ribbon ones, I should have worn one in my hair. I normally do. The ribbon ones do make very little jaunty scarves or lovely head scarves. The chunkier ones are more for actually keeping warm. And this is a kind of, it's not well, it is their equivalent of black in this range, but it's really a very dark blue. And I've made a red one. Excuse me, just gonna. Now I thought we might get a cat earlier, but she did a lot of running around earlier and seems to have tuckered herself out. She is dead to the world in a cube. So this is this one, it looks more black when it's with the red. This is a kind of classic Harley Quinn colourway. And yeah, this is one of the little ribbon ones, which is a lime and blue. And then because not everyone wants bright colours and I had a lot of this beige yarn, I'm actually going to make several of these just because I have them. This is a really nice, this is the West Yorkshire Spinners Croft DK in a, like, it's tasteful. I think this is fun, but I don't know if everybody considers it tasteful, you know? So I've got, I need to photograph them because I'm going to write it up as a pattern. Anyway, I've got those there, and yeah, I've started a new one. They whip out quite quickly. And then the other thing I'm working on is my Christmas socks, or are my Christmas socks, I guess. This is the sock I was knitting on when I streamed 2 weeks ago. And if it was 2 weeks ago, I had worked out by that point that I had done the foot too short because it was in the class I taught 2 weeks ago and I taught it also this weekend. Anyway, right. Time, who is she? But I finished it. There is my... I've been referring to them as afterthought heels, but obviously they're not afterthought because I've put the thing in. So these must be the ones people call forethought heels, which I guess afterthought heels, people are just knitting the tube and then deciding where to put them afterwards. I mean, I'm very happy to cut into my knitting, but I like to know where I'm cutting into it. And I'm then on number 2, and the foot has basically 10 coloured stripes before you start the toe decreases, and I'm about to start stripe number 6, so that's well underway. Yeah, this one has I mean, it's, let's face it, it's 64 stitches. It goes pretty fast. However, I'm pretty pleased with how quickly this is knitted up. I didn't do a huge amount of knitting last week, and not just because I was playing Stardew Valley. But because, yeah, I just didn't do much. Oh, I was about to say I've got the stripes wrong, and then I realised, no, that is the light blue section. Let's go to... Nope, wrong one. Let's go to Big Hand, Small Rosie. Change which side they're on, because if the camera is set up and it's slightly throwing me off, because I have to remember which side to go. Now, this is all I have left. And what I could do is count how many stripes I have of like how many red stripes or whatever I have left. I think this is going to take me to the end of the toe, but not to the heels. However, I believe that somewhere there is a sample one of these that like a sample sock, possibly a child-size one, that I am going to unravel because it is a single sock that will not fit my foot, and I will use some of it to do the heels in my sock, and I will use some of it as to make little scarves, because what I'm trying to do with some of the stuff is use reclaimed wool. My dream is to get a jumper in a charity shop and unravel it, but I do not need to do that right now. Hello, I see hellos in the chat. Hello to people. Welcome. We're just talking about, the ongoing theme of, I would say, the last few years of my life is talking about how much wool I have in the house. Now, the background of this is not, like, it's not I've seen worse backgrounds of people's houses from people with much bigger platforms than me. I mean, obviously the decorating situation that's in hand. The tubs, it's the tubs of craft materials. So I'm not going to be buying anything and unraveling it to use just yet, but that I would love to do that, because I think that's really cool. Is you buy a jumper in a charity shop, and depending on how it's sewn together, you can tell whether it's it can be, if it's been serged, you can't take it apart because that means that each row has been cut when it was sewn together, so you end up with lots of strands. But if it was the panels sewn together, then, or like crocheted together, then you can unravel it and get quite like proper sized balls of wool out of it. However, right now I don't need to do that, but I do have some things like samples that I can very much reclaim, rather than just like I'll just unravel it and reuse it. Like there is I wind it onto a skein and wash it and then rewind it again, and yeah, I don't want it to sound like I've got this old manky sock. Oh, Sneaky Fox 899 has a crochet fox. Yes. Faith says, overlockers and Velcro, very handy until they really aren't. Yeah. This is the thing, is I get the... Well, I'm not quite sure. I assume when a jumper or, you know, a garment is overlocked, which is where they're trimmed, I'm assuming the pieces were still knitted to size, or sometimes there'll obviously be panels of knitted fabric that are cut and then overlocked or serged, which wouldn't be unravelable anyway because they'd have been cut from bigger pieces. But if they had been knitted to size and then serged together, so even though it still had very little waste fabric, you'd still be cutting all of the ends. Yeah, so I have I've got a sock. In short, I've got a sock to reclaim to make the rest of this heel. And I've got, I'm glad I thought of that, because I have 3 sample socks that are just singles. Just a single sock, and they can be lovingly reclaimed and upcycled and reused. I had my blueberry loaf before we started, because I thought the last thing anyone wanted was me sitting and eating cake. Unless it turns out that that's what people want and I become a mukbang channel, but I don't know if that's the vibe. Yeah, I said it was gonna, this is gonna be a knitting a knitting video, but I don't think I've actually knitted a stitch yet. I'm quite conscious of the fact that because I'm using a webcam on my laptop, every time I hit the desk, the camera wobbles. I'm working on that. We work on one thing a stream, so we've got music now. And also remembering to look into the camera, because obviously if I had a separate camera set up, that would be easier to remember, but I'm already looking mere inches from where the camera is to check the screen, to check all my settings. Yeah, so I'm trying to remember to look into the light and not into my own beautiful face. These needles do need gluing back together. This one has popped off the cable a couple of times, but I can't find where I've put my... Madam, please. I can't find where I've put my good glue. So, instead, we're just doing danger knitting, and every time I push the stitches further up the needle, I shove the needle back onto its cable. Yeah, rather than... I mean, has it fallen off mid-row? Yes, twice. But I can't find the glue, and it's not in one place, so that's out of the question. I'll fix it when I finish the socks. Oh, and then we've got this stitch marker making noise on the table. When I did the previous sock, I didn't mark my start of row, because once I get to this point, I do need to have, when I start the toe, lining up with the heel, otherwise your foot has to go through a sort of weird Mobius strip. Or well, not a full Mobius strip, but it has to, you need your toe and your heel to line up. I don't know if you've ever looked at a foot before. And I had sort of knitted this whole foot and then realised I had to make sure it all lined up. So I have put a marker in, but the one I had to hand is this chunky boy. Yeah, Toby in the chat says, this seems fine, presumably about my danger needles. Look, I have DPNs. They're right here. I just don't want to knit this sock on DPNs, even though this would be a legitimate use of DPNs, unlike the tiny scarf, which there's no point on the even tinier DPNs. So, hey, it's all fine. It's all fine. I feel like I've just I've got teeny projects at the moment. I did try and start a jumper last week, and it was not good. I have some brushed alpaca silk from Drops, which I was very kindly given by someone who was destashing, and I thought, oh, I could make a jumper out of this, that'd be really cool, but it's a kind of peculiar thing because it says to use 5 mils on it, but it's a very fine silk core with fluffy alpaca around it, kind of like kid silk if you've used that, but it, I don't know, I just wasn't happy with how it was knitting up. I needed to hold it double, but I didn't have enough yarn for a whole jumper for that, or use tiny needles, like really tiny needles, and that I was not into. So I think I'm going to probably just make some hats and little scarves and repurpose it that way rather than as a jumper, because there's absolutely no point knitting an entire garment in a yarn you don't love and is quite tricky to work with if you don't like how it's coming out. Yeah, if you look on Ravelry or something to see the way it knits up, it has a very particular tension or gauge to it because the yarn is so fine that you end up with a teeny tiny stitch and then a big gap and then a teeny tiny stitch, and the gaps are full of the they're not empty because there's the haze from the brushed alpaca, but it means that you've got these kind of very fine lines of stitch with this kind of gaps between them. So it almost looks like ribbing, but yeah, it's not. Oh, Faith says she met someone the other day who has 6 alpacas and spins their floof into yarns. That's kind of the dream. I mean, I also think I'd rather keep alpaca than sheep. I live in a studio flat, so it's not going to come up, but yeah, that does sound very cute. Alpaca being one of the only things that are farmed solely for their yarn. I mean, obviously different breeds of sheep. Depends on what we do with them. But yeah, alpaca, I think people are either they're just pets, they're used for their fluff, or you do alpaca walk tours where people go and walk around a bit of countryside with an alpaca on a leash, and it's good for their mental health. I'm pretty sure I saw that on Countryfile once. Oh, apparently one alpaca grows a lot of floof. They seem quite sleek, but then I suppose, you know, my small cat produces a lot of floof when you actually comb it off her. So I suppose with an alpaca it's the same, you comb it off and yeah, you think, how did that one alpaca have a huge yes sir 3 bags full of floof? Okay, so in the shop I used to own, I had a bag of alpaca that was like unprocessed alpaca fluff that I inherited with the shop when I took it over. And I always thought like, oh, maybe I'll spin this. That was never going to happen. And when I finally closed the shop, I didn't know what to do with this. It was literally a paper potato sack of alpaca. And a friend of mine said, oh, I have a friend who spins, like I'll give it to her. And I was like, yes, please take it off my hands. And so when did I close the shop? The summer. So it was probably June or July last year. And I have already received a photo of the jumper made from the potato sack of fluff. So, like, bravo to the executive function of the person who got it, because they have not only carded it, and I guess, I don't know whether it needed washing, but it needed, a good tidy. They have spun it and then made it into a wearable item. That was very cool to receive. I really want to go and annoy the cat and see if she'll get up. Maybe we'll give up over having yarn cam and we'll just have cat cam, because the hello, cat cam, hand cam here actually doesn't have to be plugged in. It just talks to the laptop on its own, which is a bit weird. It's one of those things where you're like, well, that's really good, but also how and why are you doing that? Which means, however, that I could still have the setup here on the desk, and then we could just put the webcam in front of Susie. So maybe for next week's, I'll get to play in OBS a bit more. Am I doing this just to get to play around with a new bit of software that works? I'm used to hearing about it crashing on people's live streams, and I think that's mainly because these are people who are doing like proper stuff and they're like, oh, OBS has crashed. This is obviously the point at which OBS then crashes for me, but it is very cool that this free bit of software and some Canva graphics actually work together to make a live stream. The internet is a dreadful place that's bringing about the downfall of democracy. However, on the plus side, the fact that I can sit in my flat and make a live stream and have it look, I'm not suggesting this looks like BBC One, but it's not just me and a sort of potato webcam. There's music and multiple cameras. That's pretty cool to my mind. It's a bit bizarre watching the knitting not be in sync with the knitting that I'm doing because of the ever so slight delay. So I'm watching my hands move on the what do we call this? I guess the control panel. This is the chat window, but I sort of hoped there would be a way of watching the chat through OBS, but there doesn't seem to be. It just seems to tell me that you're connected. That's fine. Yeah. Can probably bring I think the sun has actually disappeared, so I could probably open the blinds so we can actually have some more light. It's very nice that sunshine is a thing again. I know the sun's been back for a week or two, but I'm still slightly in awe of it not being, you know, I think by the end of February, every morning you woke up and it was sort of, this is the BBC, and Britain is in its 59th day of sunlessness. Oh God. And then you'd hear these kind of mad statistics where they'd be like, the sun hasn't been seen in Leith since 2017. Oh no. Oh, that's annoying. Sorry, my watch is buzzing, and I've realised that it you know, it doesn't have, oh no, it's hidden. It's hidden by small rosy big hands over here. What's interesting is I have no idea what music is playing because I can't hear it. So I assume it. No, I mean I know it's still playing, but I'm allowing myself to be quiet in points, and I just have to hope that I have picked good Stardew Valley music, and it's not what banjo heavy ones. I tried to take some of those out. Unfortunately, it is in kind of game order, so we're not going to get the Ginger Island track unless I stream for 2.5 hours. That's one of my favourites. Oh, that sounds great. Faith was outside in a pub garden yesterday, and it was definitely no longer winter, and it was good. That does sound very good. Meanwhile, someone I know was at some ice hockey, and everyone was in their big coats. Indoors. What did I do yesterday? Oh, I spent the day on the sofa. It was lovely. Well, I went to parkrun in the morning, and then came home and crashed pretty hard. So I really lent into it, and I said, right, you know what? Especially on a Sunday, you've got the start of the week the next day to start things over. So I got out my blanket and my heat pad and watched a lot of cozy YouTube that I'd sort of fallen behind on. I believe that I will eventually catch up with YouTube and then start television, and then when I finish television I'll start films. It's a good plan, and definitely will be how that works. You know how there used to be, I assume it's still there was a static web page you could visit that was called The End of the Internet. And it said, oh, congrats, you've reached the end of the internet. You've done it all, you can go outside now. I think I need to make a YouTube video that's that for me. And post it, maybe every 3 days, especially to shorts. YouTube Shorts thinks I want to watch American medical dramas. Really AI filtered. So everybody is extremely smooth, almost laminated. And yeah, that I want to watch that, and I want to watch it all in 45-second clips. And unfortunately, part of my brain does. So I have to resist the siren call of the shorts window. Oh, but then my favourite internet cat has started doing long-form content. So if you have not looked at Gumbus the cat, oh, you haven't lived. Oh, she's a little cat. She's a tiny cat whose vet described her as a congenital disaster, and she's got enormous eyes and no teeth, and I love her so much. And yeah, she's on Instagram, she's on YouTube, and yeah, she posted her first long-form video. I say she posted. I'm aware she's not running the account, because clearly her assistant, who is a human, is. Hey, I think that even if you're in a pub garden wearing a big coat, that's still in a pub garden. Sorry, I'm continuing the pub garden chat in the chat. Yeah, wearing a big coat but with one button done up. Sounds pretty pub gardenish still to me. I'm now trying very hard not to lapse into a reverent silent remembering of pub gardens I have known and loved. Is it the King Charles in Heslington? Where you used to be able to get a steak and ale pie with chips and peas for $2.99. Happy days. They would not serve you snakebite. Sorry, I started thinking about snakebite. I said I wasn't going to lapse into a reverential silence, but then I started thinking about 2009. Which is probably the last time I had a snakebite. I wonder how much that pie is. Because that was ludicrously cheap, even for 2009, $2.99 for like a pretty big pie. Chips and peas. So it's probably still really cheap. Because, yeah, but maybe it's like a fiver? It's probably close to £7.50 and I'm in denial about the status of the pound. That was a good pub. And there was a really famous sandwich shop, but I never lived on that side of the York campus, so I only went there once or twice. But people were mad for the sandwich shop in Heslington. I lived in York, I went to university there. For anyone who's like, this woman has a really in-depth knowledge of one village. Did they specify what kind of steak it was? Now I reckon that if it says steak, right, that's beef. So they didn't. I don't think it was good beef. It was good pie. I'm broadly vegetarian, but if you gave me King Charles... Was it called the King Charles? God, do you ever have these things where... Things you just had at your fingertips daily, you now realise you have to sort of scrabble around inside to try and get... If you gave me one of those pies right now, even though it's 20 to 5, which is not pie time, I'd eat the heck out of it. I'd eat the heck out of one of those pies. Oh, it's March. I've not eaten meat in a year, because the last time I ate meat was at Disneyland Paris, which I haven't been to in over a year, which is quite shocking for me, where I ate veal. Okay, so they say, I'm convinced that the meatballs are... Saying one French word in the middle of a sentence makes it sound like you don't know how to speak either French or English. V-E-A-U, which is veal. But it seems really weird for Disneyland Paris's meatballs in their Lady and the Tramp / Luca themed Italian restaurant to be made of veal, you know? That feels like a mystery meat situation. Not like a named baby cow situation. Yeah, so we can't say I'll never eat veal again. This reminds me of a time I was once on a bus with a friend, and it turned out that not all of my experiences are relatable, because I looked out of the window and pointed at a restaurant and said, "That's where I first ate quail." And she was like, "That's not first." It was great. I'd eat a quail as well if you presented it to me. I think mainly I'm vegetarian because I can't be bothered to prepare my own food. And if so, like, if you gave me a quail you had cooked, I'd eat that. It would be very weird. I mean, how do you get in here, for starters? Faith says, for some reason I'm thinking of cut my own throat dibblers pies and Ankh-Morpork. What's weird is that they were nice. They weren't even like, you know, pucker pies. Like when you go into a fish and chip shop and they've got pucker pies, it's still in their plastic wrappers. And you're like, I'm okay with that like weird flaky pastry. They were like a nice short crust pastry. They were in slices, like they were cut from a big pie, but I can only assume they came as frozen slices. Happy days. I am probably going to wrap this up now because, as I said, I've had a week off because I've been a little bit under the weather, and I was having my little pre-stream rest. At a point where I was like, oh, it's interesting that my pain has decided to appear half an hour before I have the one thing I have scheduled today, so that's super useful. So I don't want to push myself too hard. I'm sorry we didn't. It's just so. It'd be one thing if she was puttering around, or even on the sofa, but she's in her cube, and I can't go and like reach into a cube to steal a cat. So maybe I need to do this stream at a different time when it's not Susie's nap time, because once again I have lured you in with a cover image. It does say cat not guaranteed, but it suggests that there'll be a cat, and there wasn't a cat. Anyway, so we were having a cat time, but thank you so much for everyone who's watched. You know what's nice? We had more people than last week. That's not difficult, but we still had them, and thank you everyone in the chat. I really enjoy doing this. As I said, like, I really enjoy playing with the software. I enjoy nattering. I'm one of Earth's mightiest yappers. So thank you very much for coming. Next week I hope to have these socks finished, and I might get out one of my other projects. I have oh, it's lace though. I don't think I should stream and knit lace. That seems, I can only really stream and do something pretty basic. I mean, I have looked into getting a capture card so I could stream video games. Again, this is a craft channel. Have a lovely old week, and I should actually be back next week. Unlike, you know, unless I've taken another week off. But yeah, the aim is to do these weekly. Have a great one. I hope you get to go and be in a pub garden soon, even if they're not charging 2009 prices. Yeah, have a great one, and I will see you next time.